Well, it is the first day of LCS. It's kicking off in just a couple minutes, but we're actually going to do this interview right now, and then it'll get posted after LCS is done, because we're talking about some stuff that's not getting announced until all of that. I'm joined right now by Chopper from LCS to talk about some announcements. Of course, coverage brought to you by Alienware. So, what are you guys announcing? Well, let's go with today's announcement, which will already be out by the time this video hits.
So we have two announcements coming out in kind of short succession. We're talking about the Spring Split Finals location for LCS, and then we're also talking about the MSI location. So for the Spring Split, we're really excited to bring the finals to St. Louis. We're going to be going to the Chaffetz Arena. Going to be a lot of fun bringing an event to the Midwest. It's a great sized arena, so we're really excited about that show. And then for MSI, we're super excited to be going to Vietnam for the start of it. So we're going to be going actually through 3 cities. So we're going to go to Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and then we're finishing up in Taipei.
So let's break down the Spring Split one first. So why St. Louis?
You know, it sort of continues the trend that we've had for the last couple of years now, which is we want to make sure that we're bringing events around the country, able to kind of serve different audiences. And we hadn't been to the Midwest really in a big capacity since we went to Chicago for quarterfinals in 2016. And we knew that there was still a large audience there that wanted to attend a live event. So mostly for us, it was about finding the right venue, finding the right timing. And, you know, Chaffetz is a great arena. It's going to afford us a lot of options for how we want to shoot the show. And we're really excited to be able to bring the show there.
Speaking of capacity, what does this look like compared to Miami last year?
A little smaller than the film. No, I'm just kidding. The arena itself sits about 10,500 normally. I think with our stage and production and like the seats that we have to kill because we don't have good sight lines, we'll probably be in the range of about 8,000 to 9,000 on site.
Okay. And what was Fillmore like spring finals in Miami last year was like 2 to 3K?
Yeah, it's about 3K.
Okay. So this is more than double, hopefully, after everything gets filled in, the capacity. So last year, you mentioned that you were going for something that was like a more small and unique venue. You felt like that was the way to play with spring. Is this a change back to what we had seen before?
Not necessarily. I think when we were talking about small and unique venues, that was a tool that allows us to branch into different regions. And so when you think about, you know, South Beach, there's not a ton of arena options down there unless you're going like NBA size or kind of Fillmore size. And so being able to tap into a wider spectrum of arenas allows us to go into some regions that we might not otherwise be able to go to for an event like Spring Split. With an arena like Chaffetz, which sort of fits into the middle of that spectrum, we felt comfortable going there, anticipating the regional demand for tickets, but it's not necessarily so big that it felt like it was going to kind of challenge the spectacle that we're already planning for the summer finals. Yeah.
All right, and then what is interesting to me as well was that I read in some of the pre-briefing material that there's a format change for this year's Spring Split. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's no third and fourth place match.
Correct. So we're actually eliminating the third, fourth place match this year. So the finals will be held on this Saturday. There's a couple reasons for this. You know, there's been some great moments historically in third and fourth place matches, but by and large, there haven't been as many great moments. And frequently it's kind of been the less anticipated moment of the weekend for fans. And so what we thought was, what if we did away with that event and instead replaced it with kind of a fan fest? And so what we're actually working on is securing a venue where we can have all 10 teams, so not just the championship, not just the playoff teams, but all 10 teams, sponsors, members of our publishing and community teams, and kind of bring everyone together for almost sort of like a hybrid tailgate convention style activity that can welcome anyone who wants to attend. So, you know, we thought that by bringing this element in, it would attract more fans and be a different value add that'll be more appealing than just doing the third, fourth place match again.
Will there be a live hotline league at the FanFest?
That's I understand a question for Brodin, okay. Not necessarily a question for me.
Okay, all right, I'll ask him if that's an option. Okay, so what does that mean then because circuit points were divvied up based on third and fourth, right?
Yeah, so we're actually just going to flatten the difference between third and fourth for circuit points.
Do you foresee any interesting implications from that? Because like a lot of people, I think last year saw 100 Thieves go to Worlds, and it created like a debate around the nature of circuit points and what's going on there. Do you see it being a similar situation, or do you see like even flattening the circuit point more, like either helping or improving or making the situation worse?
So we're still evaluating what we're going to do for summer in terms of whether there'll be a third, fourth place match there. When you look at the impact on spring of just the marginal difference between the third and fourth place points, it actually doesn't have a huge impact on who ends up going to Worlds or even really kind of relative ranking. So we felt pretty comfortable flattening the gap there, knowing that we still have the gauntlet planned. We still have the summer split playoffs to kind of help determine recency and ranking there. And so just combining the kind of points for third and fourth place wasn't going to be too big of an impact on the format.
Now, the other question I had about that is, the finals always sell out really quickly. Obviously, this year we're having a bigger arena than at the Fillmore, but the third and fourth place match offered fans an opportunity to get in like on a different day if they couldn't make it into finals or if they were busy that day. Do you feel that this at all like limits the ability for fans to enjoy going to these events?
That's actually why we're trying to build out the Fan Fest, is to sort of serve that alternate fulfillment option where if you're not able to make it out Sunday, or in this case Saturday, but you're a resident of St. Louis, you love playing League, you have another opportunity to go. And we felt that actually by offering the Fan Fest type event, that's going to be a sufficiently different event that it'll not only be appealing to those who couldn't make it for the finals, but also to those who are already going to the finals. And so we thought this actually provided the maximum amount of value for everyone who is both attending and wants to attend.
What was the core underlying reason in doing this? Was it because it feels like the type of thing that could have been made as a decision because oh well, we can't get the arena on Saturday and Sunday, so we'll do it Saturday and then we'll eliminate the third, fourth? Or what was it truly just like a philosophical test on how important is the third and fourth place match? What brought you guys to this decision?
It's just kind of an observation over the years of where the fans have kind of portrayed their interest. And historically, third, fourth place matches felt like sort of an afterthought on finals weekend. And so what we didn't want to do was create something that feels like an afterthought for the pros and the teams and the fans and isn't necessarily engaging. And so we kind of went back to the chalkboard and said, okay, we don't want to make this just a one-day weekend. That feels like it then becomes more of a challenge for travel and how you justify going out for the trip. So what can we do to kind of add more presence to this weekend and kind of add more spectacle to it? And we didn't want to take away from the finals. We want to make sure that everything's additive, but we also want to make sure that we're getting all the teams involved. And so this just sort of evolved out of a combination of those desires.
Historically, it's been hard sometimes for fans to plan for these events. Obviously, here you are announcing St. Louis earlier, but when will fans be able to secure tickets so that thus they can, make plans and make sure that they have access to the event?
So ticket information will come out in probably about a month or so. And I know a lot of fans often get kind of frustrated by the delay. The reason for that is there's a process actually kind of once we sign with a venue, there's actually still a pretty complicated process we have to go through before we can start offering tickets because we build a custom set for every venue that we go to. It's not just sort of dropping one jigsaw place into a floor plan and saying we're done. So we have to design the entire set. And then once that process is done, we actually then have to evaluate the sight lines of all of the seats in the house to make sure we're not selling a seat that's behind a column or behind a speaker or has no visibility of kind of a gameplay screen. And so with the set design process, that can take a couple weeks, and then the evaluation on those seats can take a little bit of time as well. And we need all that to be done before we can put tickets on sale. So now that we're signed and locked with Shea Fitz and we're in the process of doing the set design, we'll finish out that ticket evaluation and then we'll have ticket information coming out.
Is this a process you're looking to speed up for summer so that people, because obviously fans would like to have 2, maybe sometimes 3 months of heads up, knowing I've got this ticket, I can go there, everything's fine, I can go buy a plane ticket and take time off work and all that.
Yeah, we're actually in the process of closing out our venue search for the summer finals already. So we're looking to sign that venue and make sure that we kind of get closed out on that as early as possible so that, again, we can start that set design, we can start that ticket evaluation, and make sure that there's plenty of off time for players to make the decision on attendance.
Okay, so going back to the Vietnam and Taipei announcement, why these two opportunities for MSI? And we should say, I assume that this is not as much your you were not a major decision maker in this because you're part of the North America team, but global. But you can speak a little bit to it. So why was this decision made for MSI?
MSI offers us an opportunity to bring a major event to kind of a good up-and-coming region. You look at what we've brought to Brazil in the past, and so it's a lot of fun when we can bring this to a region that largely hasn't been able to host a major event. And when you look at the growth of Vietnam, especially through the launch of the Vietnam Championship Series, the presence of these Vietnamese teams at Worlds, the expansion of some of these Vietnamese players into other leagues, it's time that region is kind of able to offer a more mature experience for fans globally. And so it becomes a matter of finding the right venues and, making sure that we have the production capability in those regions. That can be harder than it is in going back to North America or going back to Germany or France or Spain or China, where we've worked with production companies before. We know who to call to get internet and get cameras and do XYZ. Going to a new country requires a little bit more exploration, but when we can do so and when we can now add that to our list of locations that we can go to, it's incredibly rewarding because now when we think about future events, we have an additional option to go to, and we always want to bring those live events to delight the fans. And so being able to go and delight the fans in Vietnam is going to be a really incredible experience.
Now, I was incredibly critical last year of the decision to stick most of MSI in the Berlin studios. What do venues and capacity look like for Vietnam?
So I don't have a ton of information on the specific venues. I anticipate there'll probably be more information on that coming out. I know that is probably there will probably be again a scaling of the experience. We'll start smaller. We'll kind of build up a little bit more. So I would anticipate kind of a similar probably experience in terms of it'll be a smaller venue. I don't know necessarily which one for kind of the initial group stage and the play-in stage. But what we're focused on is building the experience throughout the tournament, so that at every stage that you're at, it feels commensurate with the size of the spectacle, and we want to make sure that especially the finals has that kind of real impact that the fans want.
Yeah. Similar question, do you have any idea on when fans can start to expect to make plans for it? And also sort of tied into that, for fans who are watching from North America, as much of my audience is, going to these international events is a fun opportunity for some of them, but it's sometimes like the path to getting the ticket and making the plans is not always clear. So I guess the two questions are, any idea on when that stuff will be available, and two, is there going to be support for fans from other countries that want to go visit these countries and attend these events?
I would anticipate that information for that will probably also be coming out in the coming weeks. I know they're busy working on, again, the set designs and the final production holds for those venues. In terms of support for those countries, it's certainly something that we've tried to do in the past, especially with countries that different residents might not have gone to before. So explaining sort of here's things to think about if you're an American going to China, or here's like the passport you need to think about. So I'm sure we'll try and do some different supports. It's a great point that we can probably do more in that area. So that's probably something we'll take back to the team and see what we can do to provide sort of, hey, here's your X nationality guide to going to kind of Ho Chi Minh City or Taipei or wherever the event stage you want to attend is.
Well, I'm glad I can raise some good points for Riot to think about.
It's been 6 years. He got to one.
Okay,
so, we're...
No, I guess I meant like the guides are really nice, but I also mean specifically like ticketing, purchasing, and all that kind of stuff, because I've heard story every time it feels like that there's an international event, especially whenever it's in Asia. I have American or English speaking people tweeting at me and being like, I couldn't get on the website, or the website I had to navigate it, or like the tickets were released like randomly at this time, or what. It feels like sometimes it is difficult to plan to go see your favorite region compete at one of these events. So I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that or any plans to go through that.
We always try and make sure that the event is attending the event is as simplified as possible. And so, in some cases we have to work through specific ticket websites or, kind of application websites because of the venues that we're going to, where they might be contractually bound to certain companies. And so when that's the case, we try to make the process as simple as possible, but it's not necessarily always something that's within our agency, because in a lot of cases venues have their existing contracts with ticket sites, and we can't just sort of say we're going to take all the tickets and put them on our LCS website for sale. So it changes every time, and we try to just make sure the process is as easy as possible, but sometimes wrinkles get thrown in.
Any predictions for upsets this weekend? Because the great thing is people will see this interview after everything's already happened.
Who's the favorite? I mean, like that's the great thing about this split. You look at we have 3 new world champions who are playing with us this year. We have you have the Jensen war in game 1. You get.
I think if you compare Team Liquid to Optic, I'm not saying they're facing each other, but I feel like people would say Team Liquid is favored this split compared to Optic, especially as they're bringing in an academy team.
Sure. I mean, but I think over the course of the split, you're going to see a lot of really interesting questions around how teams gel. And so that to me is the really exciting thing. How are Bang and Aframu going to play together? Like, who knows? That could be a finals team. That could be a playoff team. Like, it totally depends on how some of these new teams come together. And this weekend's going to be a great test for a lot of that stuff. You're going to see some really, really exciting games right up front. But it kind of continues throughout the season. Like, every week you look at, there's, several games where it's just like, God, I can't miss this. Like, whether it's this player versus that player, or, this guy came from that team. Just the storylines this year are going to be incredible. And, for me, it's one of the most exciting seasons we've had yet.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Chopper, for the interview. Looking forward to heading to St. Louis in just a couple of months, and then Vietnam and Taipei after that. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching that interview. It's so good to be back at LCS, creating all this content for you. I do want to give a big shout out to Alienware for their support of my LCS coverage this year. By the way, I don't know if you've been watching LCS, but they also sponsor LCS How cool is that? If you might have missed some of the commercials around their new Area 51M. It's this badass desktop replacement laptop. I'm going to see if I can get my LCS editor to show some footage of that right now. Maybe that's what you're seeing. Regardless, just go check out their stuff. There's a link in the description, dell.com/Travis. They've been helping me out. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to more 2019 coverage with all of you.